It was still dark when Rosa zipped up her faded hoodie and stepped outside her tiny two-bedroom apartment. The bitter morning air bit through her sleeves, but she didn't flinch. She had gotten used to cold mornings and long bus rides. Being a single mother of two teenagers didn't allow room for complaining, especially not when you were just one missed shift away from having the lights cut off. Today was a new client, some big-shot tech millionaire who had recently bought a massive estate on the outskirts of town. His assistant had called late the previous evening, saying the regular housekeeper had quit and they needed someone urgently. Double pay, no questions asked. Rosa didn't hesitate. She needed the money and she'd cleaned fancier places before. The wrought iron gates opened slowly when she buzzed in, and the gravel crunched under her old sneakers as she walked toward the entrance. The mansion loomed like something out of a movie, glass, marble, and too much silence. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a cold monument someone built to prove they were important. The assistant met her at the door, a young man in a stiff suit, barely old enough to rent a car. "Mr. Callahan is upstairs. Please keep noise to a minimum. He doesn't like disturbances," he said without making eye contact. "You're here to clean the main floor and the east wing." Rosa nodded, clutching her cleaning tote like a lifeline. But as she stepped into the massive foyer and looked around the empty, echoing rooms, a strange feeling settled in her chest. This place was too quiet, too polished, like someone had scrubbed out every trace of life. She began in the kitchen. Marble countertops, untouched pans, expensive coffee machines that hadn't been used in weeks. There was no warmth here, no scent of cooking, just stainless steel and silence. She moved methodically, working her way into the dining room, then down a hall filled with stark modern art she couldn't make sense of. But then she reached a wooden door at the far end. It wasn't on the list the assistant gave her. It was slightly ajar, and from inside she heard something that made her stop cold. A baby crying. Not just crying, wailing. Her first instinct was confusion. Was there even a baby in this house? The assistant hadn't said anything. Maybe she was imagining things, but no, there it was again. The piercing, desperate cry of a child. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like your entire life was about to change, even before anything happened? Rosa hesitated, then gently pushed the door open. The nursery was dimly lit, with soft blue walls and a mobile that hung above an untouched crib. And there, sitting on the floor, was a little baby boy, no more than 10 months old, tear-streaked cheeks, tiny fists pounding on a plush bear. His onesie was twisted, and his little face was red from crying. Rosa's heart clenched. Where was the nanny? Why was he alone? She knelt slowly, not wanting to startle him. "Shh, baby." "Hey there," she whispered, scooping him up instinctively. The crying slowed almost immediately. His tiny fingers curled around her hoodie string, and he hiccuped softly against her chest. His head nestled into her shoulder like he had known her his whole life. Rosa stood there, frozen. She hadn't held a baby in years, not since her own were little. And yet here was this stranger's child, trembling in her arms like he had been waiting for her. Why do some people find comfort in a stranger before they ever find it in their own family? The door creaked behind her. She turned and nearly dropped. The baby. A tall man in a tailored suit stood in the doorway staring at them with icy eyes. Logan Callahan, the billionaire, the owner of this cold glass prison. "What are you doing with my son?" he asked, voice sharp like breaking glass. Rosa's throat went dry. She looked down at the baby, who had stopped crying entirely, still. Pressed against her, still calm. "I heard him crying," she said softly. "No one came." Logan stepped forward, his jaw clenched. He didn't even look at the child. "He cries all the time. There's a nanny." "Or there was," he muttered, brushing past her. "Leave him, that's not your job." But as Rosa gently tried to set the baby back down, the child clung tighter, letting out a whimper. Logan flinched at the sound. He didn't know what to do with his own son. What kind of life creates a man who doesn't know how to hold his own? "Child!" Rosa looked at him. Not the billionaire, not the boss, but the broken man underneath. "You should hold him," she said. "He just wants to be close." Logan shook his head. "I don't do babies." That should have been the end of it. Rosa should have backed away, handed over the child and returned to scrubbing floors. But something in her refused. Something about that baby's desperate grip. Something about that man's hollow eyes. So she held him a little longer. The assistant fired Rosa later that afternoon. Apparently, interfering with personal affairs was a breach of contract. She didn't argue, just left with her tote and a lump in her throat. But that night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the baby boy, how tightly he had clung to her, how quickly he had quieted in her arms, and how cold that house had felt. 3 days later, her phone rang. "Is this Rosa Alvarado?" "Yes." "This is Mr. Callahan's assistant. He'd like to speak with you." A pause, then a deep voice on the other end. "My son hasn't stopped crying since you left." Rosa didn't know what to say. "I need someone who can help," Logan said. "Would you come back, just to help with him?" She thought of her kids, the unpaid rent, the empty fridge, and she thought of that baby's little face. "Yes," she said, "I'll come." Why do we open our hearts to those we don't know, while keeping walls up for those we love? That was the beginning. The second time she entered the mansion, Rosa didn't bring her cleaning supplies. She brought applesauce pouches and a stuffed bear her daughter no longer needed. Logan didn't meet her at the door this time. It was just her and the baby. And somehow, that felt exactly right. Rosa stepped into the nursery with the quiet confidence of someone who had held tiny lives together for a long time. Little Liam, Logan's son, she'd learned his name from a medical file left out on the changing table, was already whimpering in his crib when she entered. But the moment he saw her, his eyes lit up. He reached out, arms trembling with need, and Rosa's heart did the thing it hadn't done in a while. It cracked open, just a little more. She scooped him up, whispering, "Hey, it's okay, I'm here now," as if she'd always been there. Logan was nowhere to be found that first hour, and she didn't ask. Instead, she focused on Liam. She fed him, rocked him, even sang to him in soft Spanish lullabies. The way his eyelids drooped in contentment, how he leaned into her, told her everything she needed to know. This child wasn't just fussy. He was starved for affection. How many children cry not from hunger or pain, but from the ache of not being held? By mid-afternoon, Logan finally appeared. He lingered at the doorway again, watching as Rosa fed Liam his bottle. This time he didn't scowl, but his face wore the same look Rosa had seen before, like someone who didn't belong in the room but couldn't walk away either. "He only sleeps when you're around," he said, almost bitterly. Rosa glanced up. Babies know who's safe. The words hung in the air longer than they should have. Logan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. That afternoon she found herself cleaning again even though she hadn't been asked. She wiped counters and folded blankets with Liam in a sling across her chest. It felt easier than walking around that empty mansion without doing something useful. Later in the kitchen, she spotted a bottle warmer still in its packaging. "Do you know how to use this?" she asked when Logan walked in. He shrugged. "I bought it, never opened it." "You want to learn?" she offered. He looked at her like she had just asked if he wanted to fly. "No," he said. But the next morning, he was in the kitchen before she was, standing awkwardly with the bottle warmer in his hand, holding it upside down. He didn't say a word, just handed it to her, so she showed him, slowly, patiently, one step at a time. He watched everything, like he was learning a foreign language for the first time. Why is it that the most powerful people often feel the most powerless when faced with love? Over the next few days, a rhythm began to form. Rosa would arrive early. Liam would light up. Logan would hover nearby. Sometimes he asked questions about naps, feeding schedules, diaper brands. Other times he just stood in the hallway as if afraid to come closer. Once Rosa found him sitting outside the nursery door with his head in his hands. She didn't say anything then. She just opened the door wider. Let him hear the lullabies. Let him feel less alone. The first time Rosa saw Logan hold his son, it wasn't planned. Liam had been fussy that day. Teething, maybe. Rosa was exhausted. She hadn't slept well the night before. Her own daughter had a bad fever. And now Liam wouldn't settle. She bounced him on her hip, tried singing, rocking, walking. Nothing worked. Logan had been in his office, but the crying brought him out. "Let me try," he said, surprising them both. Rosa hesitated, but then handed the baby over. Logan took him clumsily, like someone lifting a glass sculpture. But Liam didn't cry. Not immediately. He stared at his father, confused, blinking, and then buried his face in his chest. Something shifted in Logan's face. Like a string pulled taut suddenly gave way. His arms tightened just slightly. Not perfectly, but enough. "Just keep moving," Rosa whispered. "Babies like rhythm." So Logan paced the nursery while Rosa watched from the chair. He didn't speak, didn't look at her, but something raw passed between them in that silence. And when Liam finally fell asleep, nestled into the crook of his father's arm, Logan sat down in the rocking chair and whispered, "I don't know how to do this." Rosa didn't answer with advice. She just met his gaze and said, "None of us do. We just try again tomorrow. What if healing doesn't come from having the answers, but from not running away anymore?" That evening, Logan walked Rosa to the door, something he hadn't done before. "Thank you," he said, voice low. "For today, first not walking out. Most people do." Rosa held his gaze. "I don't leave crying babies." She paused, then added softly, "And I don't leave broken men who are trying to hold them." Logan didn't respond, but for the first time, his expression softened, not warm, but no longer cold. 2 weeks later, by the third week, the mansion didn't feel as empty. Liam giggled now. Full belly laughs that echoed off the glass and marble. Rosa brought him small toys and finger foods. Logan started taking work calls from the nursery just to be nearby. Once, Rosa caught him humming a lullaby. Off-key, barely audible. But there. One afternoon, as Rosa fed Liam, Logan came in with an old photo album. "My assistant found this in storage," he said. "From when I was a kid." He placed it beside her. Inside were faded pictures of a little boy who looked a lot like Liam, a boy with a shy smile sitting beside a woman with kind eyes and tired hands. "Your mum?" Rosa asked. He nodded. "She worked 3 jobs. I didn't see her much. But when I did, she always held me like it was the only thing keeping her upright." Rosa touched the edge of the photo. "You remember her hugs?" Logan didn't speak for a moment. Then, quietly, "I remember wishing they lasted longer. Do we ever stop needing the arms we once outgrew? Or do we just find new ones that make us feel safe again?" That night, Rosa stayed an hour later than usual. She rocked Liam to sleep while Logan read from a children's book beside her. The moment felt whole, not perfect, but healing. And Rosa, for the first time in years, felt something stir inside her, not just purpose, but possibility. The snow had just begun to fall again. Outside the mansion's tall windows, flakes danced in the cold air like soft whispers. Inside, warmth had started to bloom. Not just from the crackling fireplace Logan insisted on lighting every afternoon, but from something deeper, less visible. Rosa felt it when Liam clutched her finger with more trust than ever. She felt it when Logan, once a ghost in his own home, now asked her, "Do you think he's growing enough?" Instead of drowning in his silence, but even warmth carries shadows, and Rosa had spent too long pretending hers didn't matter. One afternoon, Logan found her in the laundry room, staring at a faded pink blanket in her hands. It wasn't Liam's, it was hers, her daughter's, the one she'd started keeping in her bag without realizing it. "Whose is that?" he asked gently. Rosa froze, her lips parted, then closed. Finally, she said, "My daughter's. Mia." He waited, silent, in that new way of his. Rosa slowly sat down on the bench near the dryer. She didn't look at him when she began. She would have been 4 this year. If the doctors had caught the infection earlier, she might still be here. The blanket trembled in her hands. She had this laugh, like bells in spring, bright, loud. Every time I hear Liam giggle, I swear. It's like she's borrowing his voice for a moment. Logan sat beside her, and for a while neither of them spoke. How do you carry the weight of a child you can no longer hold? Later that week, Rosa almost didn't show up. She stood at her front door that morning, hand on the knob, heart in her throat. Why go back to clean a mansion filled with ghosts, to bond with a baby who wasn't hers? But Liam's face floated into her mind, and for some reason so did Logan's. So she went. But she was quieter that day, slower. Logan noticed. "What's wrong?" he asked. She shook her head. "Some days just hurt more." He didn't press. Instead, that night when Rosa was about to leave, he stopped her. "There's something I want to show you." He led her down a hallway she'd never been in before, to a door with no label, no handle, just a quiet presence. He punched in a code. The door opened, and inside, a room full of things untouched by dust, bookshelves, toys, cribs, a little pink jacket still hanging on a hook. "My wife designed this room when she was pregnant," Logan said, voice thin. "With our first baby, a girl. She didn't make. It miscarried late term." Rosa's eyes widened. "I was already building the empire back then," he continued, "already absent. I didn't know how to grieve. So I shut the door, had this room sealed." He looked around. "I haven't been in here since. Why do we seal our pain behind locked doors, as if pretending it never existed makes it easier to live with?" They sat in that room together. 2. People who'd lost children, not in the same way, but in ways that shattered them all the same. "I keep Mia's things too," Rosa said, voice breaking. "Sometimes I sit with them at night, and for a few minutes, it's like she never left." Logan nodded. "That's how I feel when I hold Liam now. Like maybe I still have a chance to get something right." He looked at Rosa then, his eyes raw. "Do you think it's too late to be a good father?" She held his gaze. "It's only too late if you stop trying." He looked down. "I tried to give him away, Rosa, to a nanny, an agency. I even considered adoption. That's what kind of man I was." "But you didn't," she said firmly. "You're here. You hold him now. You know when he cries and when he laughs. That's what kind of man you are becoming." He exhaled shakily, and she knew. That was the moment something in Logan began to break, in the best possible way. A few days later, Rosa arrived to find Liam sleeping soundly in Logan's arms. The TV was off. The house was quiet, just the two of them in the rocking chair. "Morning," Logan whispered. "We've been up since 5. Teething." Rosa smiled. "You look like you've been through war." "I feel like I've won one," he said. And then he added something else. She said his name today. Rosa blinked. "Who?" "My mother." On the phone. For the first time since the funeral, she asked about her grandson. He smiled faintly. "I think I'm finally making peace with the life I have, instead of mourning the one I thought I deserved." What if peace isn't found in fixing the past, but in loving what remains despite it? That evening, Rosa didn't leave right away. They ate dinner. Yes, Logan cooked, and they all sat on the floor eating takeout dumplings. Logan had even bought a playmat. Rosa couldn't help but notice it still had the price tag on it. She laughed. "So you're trying too hard," he grinned. "Good. I want to." For the first time, Rosa didn't feel like just the housekeeper. She felt seen, important, maybe even loved. But joy doesn't come without its tests. That night, just after Rosa tucked Liam into his crib, her phone rang. She answered it in the hallway. Her sister's voice came through, sharp and frantic. "Rosa, it's Mum." She collapsed. "They're taking her to the hospital now. It's bad." The hallway spun. Rosa leaned against the wall. Not now. Not when things were finally healing. But some things can't wait. She rushed. Back into the nursery, Logan looked up. "I have to go," she said, breathless. "It's my mom. It's serious." He stood quickly. "Of course, go. Do you need—" "No," she cut in. I'll call you when I can come back." Her voice broke on the word when, and as she ran out into the snow, her heart cracked open again. But this time, not because of grief, because she was afraid of losing something that finally felt like it mattered again. When life calls us away from what we've just begun to love, how do we hold on to the hope that it will still be there when we return? Rosa didn't sleep the night her mother was rushed to the hospital. She held her hand through the beeping monitors, the slow rise and fall of her frail chest a reminder that nothing was promised. Not time, not healing, not even goodbye. "Turn to E," Sister cried in the hallway. But Rosa stayed still, strong, for the family who still needed her, for the child she had buried and the one she had learned to love. By morning, her mother opened her eyes. The doctors said it had been close. Her blood pressure had dropped dangerously low, but she was stable now, resting. Rosa stepped outside the hospital into the morning light that felt like a second chance. She wanted to call Logan to ask if Liam had eaten, to hear if he cried that soft little whimper when he didn't want to nap. But her fingers hesitated over his name. Would he want her back? Would Liam even remember her? She wasn't his mother. She had no claim over this life that had begun to bloom in the ashes of her own. What if the places we leave behind forget us faster than we heal from leaving them? 3 days passed. 3 long days. No texts, no calls, not even a photo of Liam's gummy smile. She thought of reaching out, but something held her back. Fear? Pride? The ache of believing maybe it had all meant more to her than to them? On the 4th day, Rosa packed up the little pink blanket, the one that still smelled like baby powder and dreams, and walked to the bus stop. Her mother was improving. Her sister would be there tonight, so Rosa was free. But free to go where? The mansion was quieter than she remembered. Snow covered the front steps like a memory no one dared disturb. When she knocked, her hand trembled. The door opened, and there he was, Logan, not in a suit but in a hoodie, hair messy, baby on hip. Liam saw her first. He squealed, arms reaching, face lighting up. Logan followed his gaze, and when their eyes met, Rosa felt something inside her crack wide open. "Hi," she said. Logan didn't say anything at first. He just stepped aside. "Come in," he said softly. And when she did, she smelled cinnamon he'd been baking. Baking, the man who couldn't boil water 2 months ago. "I tried to make those cookies you brought," he said bashfully. "Liam keeps touching the dough. I don't think it's sanitary." She laughed, and for the first time in 4 days she felt home. Can a place become home again if the heart you left behind never stopped waiting for you? That night, after Liam fell asleep in Rosa's arms, Logan walked into the kitchen and placed 2 mugs on the table. Her favorite tea. He remembered. "I missed you," he said plainly. No dramatic pauses, no rehearsed lines, just the truth. Rosa looked down at the mug. "I didn't think you would. I didn't think I could," he whispered. "But I did." She looked up, eyes swimming. "I didn't want to go, but I had to." "I know. And I hated every second you were gone." Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything they hadn't said until now. "I've been thinking," Logan continued, "about Liam, about us, about what a life looks like when it's real, not just expensive." He met her eyes. "You changed my son's life, but you changed mine first." Rosa blinked fast. She wanted to speak. But how do you respond when someone tells you you're the reason they began to feel again? So instead she asked the only thing she could. "Why me?" Logan smiled faintly. "You didn't treat my grief like a weakness. You didn't run from my silence. And you didn't pretend Liam wasn't a handful. You embraced him." He stood, walked to the fridge, pulled out a drawing, crayon, sloppy. Definitely Liam's, but Rosa's name was written at the top in Logan's handwriting. His first word was B.A., Logan said. But the second? Rosa. Clear as day. You were the one who made him feel safe. You calmed him. That changed everything. He walked closer, kneeled beside her, and for a long breath, he just looked at her. "I know I'm broken in ways. I'm still learning to name. But if there's a future for Liam where he feels whole, I think you're part of that picture, if you want to be. What if the families we belong to aren't always the ones we were born into, but the ones who choose us after the world tried to forget us?" Weeks passed, but the routine came back like a warm rhythm. Rosa didn't return to clean, Not in the same way. She came for Liam, to help him learn, to feed him, play with him, teach him words and colors and songs. She came because Logan asked her, because Liam reached for her more than anyone else, because home isn't a job, it's a heartbeat. And then, one morning as snow melted on the windowsill and spring threatened to bloom again, Logan stood in front of her with something in his hand, an envelope. Inside, a contract, but it wasn't for cleaning, it was for something new. Live-in caregiver, salary, medical, benefits. You'd have your own room. And He looked down. His voice softened. I know we can't replace what you lost. I would never ask that. But I want Liam to grow up knowing what love looks like. And I want him to learn it from the woman who first taught me how to feel it again. Rosa held the paper in shaking hands, not because of what it paid, but because of what it meant. A second chance, a new beginning, a family built not on blood, but on choice. She looked up, tears streaming. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Epilogue. 1 year later, Liam turned two, surrounded by laughter. Logan grilled in the backyard. Rosa set the table with tiny cupcakes and glittery napkins. There was a framed photo of Mia on the mantel now, next to a clay handprint. Of Liam's, Logan had put it there, because both their stories deserved to be told, he'd said, and Rosa smiled more now. She danced in the kitchen, sang lullabies without choking on memories, and when Liam called her Mama for the first time, she cried. Logan didn't try to correct him. He just squeezed her hand and whispered, He's right, because some titles aren't given, they're earned, and some love stories aren't romantic, they're redemptive. What if the most powerful kind of love is the one that rises from loss, finds its home in healing, and builds a new future? From the ashes of the old one,